Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of LH's the show where I, Luis Henrique, talk about Rio's history. Pelé, the man who conquered the world with his feet, has just recently passed away on the 29th of December of 2022 at the age of 82.
He was a revolutionary player and athlete, being rewarded for his brilliance on the pitch after having won a multitude of titles, including 2 Libertadores Cups, 2 Intercontinental Cups, 6 Brasileirões, all with Santos, 1 North American Soccer League with the New York Cosmos, and he helped the Brazilian national team win their first 3 World Cup titles in 1958, 1962, and 1970, becoming the only person in history to have won 3 editions of the World Cup, and that record still holds up to this day. It is for these reasons and so many more that he was eventually voted Athlete of the Century by the Olympic Committee. And get this, he's never even participated in an Olympic competition. That's how amazing he was.
And it wasn't just on the court that he was incredible. Outside of the court, he was also a wonderful person. So it is for all these reasons and so many more that I want to personally thank you, Pelé, for everything you've done for Brazil, for the world, and for the beautiful game that you helped develop. Thank you. I gotta be honest, talking about Pelé so much has really gotten me in the mood to talk about the topic of today's video: soccer, football, soccer, football, soccer, football. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of a debate on whether or not it should be called soccer or football, but for the sake of this video, I'll be calling it football because it's the one that's most widely used, and because here in Brazil we call it futebol, so it just makes sense to me, right? And so yeah, I said it. I'm going to be using football. Don't kill me and don't kill each other in the comments, please. Now that we got all that out the way, football is one of the most important and historical sports of all time. In fact, its genesis can be traced all the way back to China in 2500 BC. However, the sport was much different to what it is now. I mean, they used to kind of kick the literal heads of other people around, so thankfully, by the time it got here in Brazil in 1895 with Charles Miller, the sport was much different and much closer to its modern-day counterpart. And it became a massive, massive hit with the people, especially with great talents like Amilcar, Friedenreich, and a little bit later, Leônidas, our first superstar. And that actually led us to host our first ever World Cup in 1950, the first World Cup after World War II had ended. That's pretty cool. And in order to do so, we had to make a lot of investments in many different areas, including, of course, stadiums. And one of those stadiums is this beast right here behind me, the Jornalista Mário Filho Stadium, which is more commonly known as the Maracanã. Now, as I had previously said, this beast of a stadium was created in order to host a multitude of games in the 1950 World Cup. Its construction began on August 2nd, 1948, and its inauguration happened 2 years later on the 16th of June of 1950, just 8 days before it would host the Brazilian national team's first game in that World Cup. In fact, this stadium would end up hosting 8 games in that edition of the World Cup, including 4 games with the Brazilian national team, one of which was the finals, which would go down in history as one of the most thrilling games in football. That match happened in July 16th of that year, with roughly 200,000 people in attendance. To this day, it's still the highest attendance in any football match of all time, and it happened between Brazil and Uruguay, which Uruguay ended up winning that game after an incredible comeback against Brazil. The match would end up being called the Maracanazo, and it would be Brazil's first ever football heartbreak. I mean, we started winning the match, and then we took 2 goals and we ended up losing. It was such a heartbreaking occasion, that Brazil ended up using the yellow. It never ever used the white jersey ever again. We ended up trading to the yellow, which is used to this day. And you see, that national heartbreak was only made worse by the fact that it was Brazil's first true shot at winning a championship. You see, by the time Brazil had hosted its first World Cup in 1950, we still hadn't won a World Cup. However, we would do so 8 years later in 1958 with this little jersey right here, and Pelé and Garrincha forming one of the most formidable duos in the history of the sport. And from that moment on, Brazil would start to slowly dominate the football world, having won in 1962, 1970, 1994, way over there, and 2002, which unfortunately there's no jersey here for it. However, in 2002, we established ourselves as the world's first, and to this day, only 5-time world champion team. That's really cool. There's a lot of history here. I know what you may be thinking, but all 5 of those World Cups happen outside of Brazil. I mean, it's the World Cup. The whole idea is that each year there's a new host nation. So you might be wondering, well, what did the Maracanã do in the meantime? Well, usually it has hosted a lot of club competitions here in Brazil, like the Libertadores Cups or the Brasileirão, as well as having multiple music shows with Madonna, Paul McCartney, and many other famous musicians at the time. And as well as these club competitions and other entertainment venues, the Maracanã actually had a sizable expansion in 1954 in the form of the Maracanãzinho, which unfortunately we couldn't go see right now. However, it's a stadium that was built in order to host other sports competitions like volleyball and basketball, as well as having had other entertainment venues like Disney on Ice, which, to be honest, I wasn't expecting that one, but that's actually really, really cool. And I have an interesting story. I actually went to the Maracanãzinho once, watch a game between the female volleyball team during the Rio 2016 World Cup, and I had the pleasure of watching my national team getting eliminated by the Chinese team live. So I'm so lucky, I'm so happy. But yeah, great. But anyways, enough with the tragedies, all right? I've just talked about the Maracanaço. I've just talked about the female volleyball team getting eliminated. Let's talk about some Brazilian triumphs, like the time that Brazil was able to host their second World Cup, the 2014 World Cup. Oh, no. Well, I mean, everything was doing great. Pitbull did really well, and Neymar was flying until he got his backbone destroyed. And it was all downhill for Brazil from there. And no, the 7-1 defeat to Germany did not happen here in the Maracanã. It happened in the Mineirão in Minas Gerais, way back where. Here, during the 2014 World Cup, Miller's Germany beat Messi's Argentina and became a 4-time world champion. Oh, don't worry, the Maracanã was not host to only national heartbreaks. In fact, it had a lot of triumphant stories. Like, for example, Corinthians in 2000s when they won the first ever Club World Cup by FIFA. We also have, of course, the 2013 Confederations Cup where Brazil beat the mighty Spain here in the Maracanã as well. And perhaps the most important of all, in 2016, during the Olympic Games, when Brazil managed to achieve their first ever Olympic gold medal in just 2 years after we had lost to Germany. So it was like an incredible rematch between the two teams. And this time, with Neymar's penalty happening right over there in that goal, we won. And I remember it was like a party worldwide, or not worldwide, but here in Brazil. And it was incredible. So it's an incredible stadium, and I love this place. But it wasn't just in the Maracanã where Brazil would be victorious. They would also win the male volleyball competition in the Maracanãzinho in that same Rio 2016 Olympic Games. So yeah, this stadium has seen many ups and downs, many games throughout the years. It's got so much story to tell, and it is living proof that no matter where you are, history will always be the star. Thank you so much for watching this 7th episode. I'm sorry for having taken so long, but here it is. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Subscribe, leave a like. We'll see you in the next one. See ya. Yeah, and I think I forgot to talk about Pelé's 1,000th goal. Yeah, he actually scored his 1,000th goal here in this stadium, and it was one of the most incredible things ever. This isn't mine, but I want to take it, but I can't take it.